So you want a Suzuki Hayabusa. Hayabusa! What the hell does this word even mean? I've said it so many times in my illustrious career here on YouTube. Hayabusa. 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 Hayabusa God. That I have personally forgot the meaning altogether, but Hayabusa refers to a peregrine falcon in Japanese. A bird? Really, Suzuki? That's all you got? You're making what is to be the fastest production motorcycle, and you're not naming it after a fire-breathing robot or something actually cool? Come on, think of bikes like the Fireblade. The Hayabusa is like if Axe body spray made a motorcycle. It's like a leader bike wearing an affliction tee. A little bit overweight, a little bit too flashy, a little too airbrushed. In the late 90s, the Hayabusa existed to break records, and since then, the only record it still holds is being a motorcycle that has more cc's than its owners have brain cells. And I'm not talking about myself here. I did it for the memes. I did it for all of you. I sacrificed my own decency to bring you all into the twisted mind of the Hayabusa owner. Bought it back in 2022, wrote it, turboed it, blew it up again, blew it up a third time, and then Jixer Bra blew it up a fourth time.
Oh no! Yammy's gonna kill me. I didn't even do anything!
So you know what? Don't at me with that. But the unironic Hayabusa owner is a breed all of their own. And according to the title of this video, you want to be one yourself. So screw it. We gotta give the people what they want. So you want a Hayabusa. Let's get into it. Today's video is sponsored by our friends over at ASV Inventions. I'll tell you more about them later in the show. The Suzuki Hayabusa has been in production since 1999, just like a vast majority of the motorcycles in Suzuki's lineup. When it originally debuted, it was awarded the title of the fastest production motorcycle ever made, reaching top speed of 194 miles per hour during third-party testing. This rank was previously held by the Honda CBR 1100 XX Super Blackbird before being dethroned by Suzuki. Do you want some interesting bird lore? Do you like jazz? The peregrine falcon supposedly preys on blackbirds, meaning that the Hayabusa was not just named after the falcon for its speed alone, but due to its predatory nature towards slower open-class sport bikes. I can't tell if this is made up or not, but it sounds right, so I'm just gonna roll with it. It does seem quite arbitrary though, right? Suzuki contracted an avian specialist in the late 90s so that they could be sure of the biological hierarchy of their motorcycle's namesake was accurate. Also, kind of a flex. So upon its release, the first-gen Hayabusa was considered to be the fastest production motorcycle around. And I'm gonna tell you guys right now, before you finish the rest of this video, first-gen Hayabusa is the only Hayabusa that matters. It's the best Hayabusa, don't at me, it's the OG. I don't care about your Gen 2s, I don't care about your Gen 3s. Gen 1 Hayabusa is the only way to go. Now listen, being the fastest production motorcycle around was a title that was well earned, as the Hayabusa was significantly faster than the CBR 1100XX, which only had marginally earned in competition with the ZX11 from Kawasaki, who previously had the title. You can't just get a motorcycle to go 194 miles per hour by giving it a cool bird name and slapping a big kanji on the fairing. The Busa had something special going on under the hood, and that was a 1299cc inline 4-cylinder engine making 174 ponies and 101 foot-pounds of torque, baby. In 1999, that was an ass load of power, and even today, that is an ass load of power. It turns out all you need to get a motorcycle to make as much power as a leader bike and have as much torque as a massive Harley Davidson is to build the largest inline 4 engine any motorcycle had seen up to that point. The Busa was also fuel injected upon its debut, which improved fueling and power alongside the ram air system, which forces more into the engine at high speeds. When high speeds is the name of the game, aerodynamic design is incredibly important when you're in a pissing match with other motorcycle manufacturers to achieve the absolute highest top speed. Bearing in mind these speeds will never be attainable by 99% of riders, you must spare no expense. So, as a result, the Busa was forever cursed with its round and bulbous bodywork, controversial in nature, but beautiful upon recollection throughout the years. These style choices were definitely pivotal in the Busa's ability to outperform Honda and earn the title of fastest production bike. But it also landed itself on the ugliest motorcycles ever made list. Koji Yoshiura, the creator from Suzuki responsible for the design of the Hayabusa, has actually said that his intent was to make a motorcycle that was unique and somewhat grotesque, so it would be distinct and not go out of style in a few years. So good on him for planning ahead, because we know Suzuki likes to keep designs around for at least 2 to 3 decades. And I will agree, it is a grotesque design, but it does kind of grow on you after a while. I don't know, I love my Hayabusa. Well, before it broke.
Right, I think we just blew it up.
Suzuki recognizes that the Hayabusa has always been a platform that is meant to be modified. I mean, what motorcycle has been turbocharged against God's will as many times as the humble Busa? And remember, for every Go Fast mod, you're gonna wanna make sure you've got the right mods to keep you in control as well. Have you ever accidentally dumped the clutch on a Turbo Busa? Well, rest in peace, you're no longer alive. One of the best mods you can do to your Busa is to get a good set of aftermarket levers. And I see your low-brow Busa boy and Gyps or Squids log out of eBay now. You need some aftermarket levers, and you need to get them from ASV. ASV is the only company that refers to the levers as unbreakable. And if you manage to do some degen Busa behavior so squiddly that an ASV lever happens to get damaged, send them a photo and they'll replace it. Don't have a Hayabusa? Good for you. You're pure of heart, pure of soul. You're not sullied by the horrible things that a Hayabusa can do to your brain, body, and soul. ASV has one of the biggest catalogs of levers for street bikes and dirt bikes spanning all the way back to 1985. So no matter what you ride, you can check out ASV and get the last pair of levers you'll ever need. Use the link down below and use the code YAMMY to receive a 15% discount off of your order. Thanks so much to ASV for the support on the channel. We're super excited to be working together. Again, use that link in the description. Use the code YAMMY for 15% off. Now let's get back to learning about the Busa. Can we just take a second to pat ourselves and show some recognition for how much more culturally advanced we've become as motorcyclists? Can you imagine being so smooth-brained that you're basing your decision on which motorcycle you're gonna buy based on the fact that one can go 194 miles per hour, but the other can only go 175? Sure, that's a large delta for comparison from journalists and publications, but it is entirely inconsequential for the average rider. Looking back, it just seems really silly that the emphasis was put on top speed for production bikes at this time. The Big Four themselves recognized this in 2000 and informally agreed to limit all production motorcycles to a top speed of 186. Or they did it out of fear of import bans. But either way, following this agreement, no motorcycle was able to surpass the Hayabusa's top speed. Thus, it remained to be known as the fastest motorcycle of the 20th century. Although despite all of this, in addition to his claims that the Busa was intentionally hideous, Koji Yoshiura also has stated that it was never intended to make the fastest production motorcycle, but in pursuit of making the best motorcycle they could for their customers. And it just sort of happened. It was a happy little accident, I suppose. Don't you love it when that happens? Despite all of this top speed hullabaloo, the Hayabusa was and still is considered pretty comfortable and easy to ride, at least before the turbo starts to spool. Really, an unmodified Hayabusa is considered to be practically a sport bike by some metrics. The seating position is fairly relaxed compared to traditional sport bikes, especially on a Gen 1. Seriously, it's like a couch, it's awesome. And the gargantuan displacement leads to ample power and torque on tap at lower RPMs. Plus, the 550 or so pound wet rate on the first gen made it feel pretty dang planted at high speeds. Good luck on those corners though. Now, one thing I did want to say is the Hayabusa does feel that way. It just feels so planted at speed. It's one of those bikes you can comfortably cruise at 80, 90, 100 miles per hour and feel literally nothing. And the little jab I made about the corners, I already know that there's so many comments down below telling me right now that their Busa rips up the corners and they're so fast. I get it, you're amazing. Here's your pat on the back. Wow, I love you. The second generation Hayabusa was produced from 2008 up until 2020. And while modification was done to increase the power up to 194 ponies, it was still very much a Hayabusa for better or worse. Suzuki themselves claimed that their market research and focus group studies proved that despite the fact that on the surface everyone thought it was one of the ugliest bikes ever made, deep down inside many riders could not resist the Busa's dummy thick curvature. Seriously, you among me, tell me in the comments right now. I know the Busa's ugly, but it has some sort of deep sexual allure. I know it does. I know it does for you. I know it does for me, just admit it. So as a result, there were not any massively significant design changes to the motorcycle. And while doing first-hand research, our boy, once again, Koji Yoshiura, went to the good old United States to track down some enigmatic custom Busas in the wild to serve as an inspiration. So he went to nightclubs and bike nights to experience the most wretched custom Busas he could find. And upon finding them, they were not met with disgust, but instead praise. The Hayabusa is a snake eating its tail. Suzuki designed an objectively ugly motorcycle, then Busa boys stretched them, they chromed them, and airbrushed them in the most perverse and offensive ways you could possibly imagine, creating a subculture all in of its own that actually helped me spawn into famousness on YouTube. Literally, Suzuki Busa boys have helped me along in life. And then Suzuki fawned over these creations and allowed them to influence the design for Gen 2. It's literally a meme. It's always been a meme. We have all known that. And not only has Suzuki known all along, they're in on it too. This is a verbatim quote from Yoshiura. Quote, I wanted to create a masculine form that complements a rider's muscular structure with hints of developed bicep, forearm, and calves. You know we make jokes on the channel about the toxic relationship between motorcycles and masculinity, all in good fun, but for real, Suzuki's had your number since 1999. They had designed the motorcycle to enhance the male physique as to attract and impress other males. Could I make an abundant amount of homoerotic jokes here? Of course I could. Could I say that Suzuki Hayabusa boys go to Planet Fitness and get buff so that they can look good for other Busa boys? Of course I can. Do we all know this? Of course we do. As for technical improvements on the second-gen Hayabusa, its stroke was lengthened, which increased overall displacement to 1340 cc's. Thought $12.99 was big? Well, check this thing out. It received an updated exhaust system and upgrades to the brakes and suspension. The engine also has an increased compression ratio compared to the first gen, which actually is undesirable if you're gonna be boosting the engine. I'm just pointing that out there. The second gen was a little bit heavier too, weighing in a hefty 586 pounds. The third gen Hayabusa was released in the 2022 model year. It's still rocking the 1340cc engine, making 190 horsepower and 110 foot-pounds of torque. Yes, less power, no turbo. We did a whole ride and review on it. It got dusted up by an MV Agusta Brutale 800. It was sad. Although it is jam-packed with tech features like power modes, traction control, launch control, ABS, and a quick shifter, I mean, it's still Hayabusa. Suzuki is Suzuki after all. You know, they're not gonna totally reinvent a motorcycle that's still as popular as it is. The 2023 Hayabusa has an MSRP of $18,799. So, you still want a Hayabusa, huh? You're just swooning over that masculine design that accentuates the rider's thighs and glutes? Well, alright then. But you need to realize, Hayabusa ownership is not for the faint of heart. You need to either have a relentless spirit with infinite cash flow or be a slack-jawed imbecile who knows a guy with a custom paint job. But it seems as far as Hayabusa ownership goes, there are two paths. It's either a lifelong journey in search of glory or depravity. Because Hayabusas are popular. They're one of the most popular sport bikes in history and arguably one of the most regularly modified motorcycles as well. They also serve as a bit of a benchmark. You know, everybody talks about how they rolled up on a Busa or this Busa did that. It is a undeniably understood motorcycle throughout car culture, bike culture. Even normies know about this bike. When you say you've got a Hayabusa, the thing just sounds fast. You sound crazy because you own one. Now, unlike most motorcycles that peak in sales the year they are debuted and then diminish each year that follows, the Hayabusa increased in sales each year it was produced from 1999 through 2007. Get this, since its initial release, over 300,000 Busas have been sold worldwide. Another point I wanted to make is that the Hayabusa ended up being so popular in the United States due to our riders being much larger and, to be honest, fatter than the average riders that they thought of in Japan. This bike was super common with big NFL players and basketball players. They would buy them as toys to put along their Ferraris and Lambos in their garages and stuff like that. I mean, it's one of the most popular platforms for a reason, and it's why it became the meme it became. If you're buying a Hayabusa for speed, you're likely a highway drag racing degen who was never hugged by his father and feels the need to walk all over 600s on the interstate. So that's cool. No problem. That's a lifestyle. It's great. So you'll buy a Hayabusa, put 10 grand worth of mods into it, then blow it up, then rebuild it, and it will just continue for eternity until the sun explodes. I literally know like 6 of these guys. Trust me, the road to 200 miles per hour is paved with blown turbos, melted pistons, and bent connecting rods. Alternatively, you want a Hayabusa because your parents are first cousins and you have no taste. So you'll buy a Hayabusa, stretch the swing arm, put a truck tire in the back, and get an absolutely outrageous paint job depicting dragons or comic book villains or sexually androgynous illustrations of historical features. The show Busa, in quotations, is truly cursed. But I think anyone interested in building a custom show Hayabusa have had their belief system scrutinized so aggressively on this channel that they no longer watch. And we've used way too many multi-syllabic words at this point.
Man hath no hubris like a Turbo Hayabusa
For them to even consider paying attention. So that's where we're at. And I guess the last person who would get a Hayabusa is just the Hayabusa dad, who likes big stock in motorcycles and comfortable ergonomics. They're kind of like a Harley rider who's always talking about torque and how planted they feel on the highway. There's actually a lot of overlap between Harley guys and Busa guys. We've discussed this before on the channel. I've spent years studying Hayabusa memes and culture. I know a lot about this stuff, folks. You should listen to me. So Hayabusa is kind of like that, but it's also insanely fast. If you want a big open class sport bike touring style thing, a Hayabusa is a good motorcycle, but the Hayabusa never ends up living that life. Suzuki built these bikes knowing they'll end up parked in front of a strip club on Bourbon Street in New Orleans covered in Mardi Gras beads next to a puddle of vomit. Sure, Hayabusa could be built up to a drag bike for breaking land speed records, but it'll blow up. I had my Turbo Busa professionally built twice, and it still blew up. I bought and built that bike for the memes, and it has served its purpose. But does the layperson need a Turbo Busa? Nay, you need a therapist. And if you made it all the way to the end of the video, I'll give you my absolute opinion on which Busa you should get if you're considering getting one. I think you should get a clean Gen 1 Busa, probably a 2002 to a 2005. You should get it in blue because I think that's the coolest color they made them in. You should keep it stock. You should enjoy it. Try to be a Hayabusa man, and you should definitely try to top it out on an open highway. If you get the chance and you scout out the road and you make sure there's no cops. If you get pulled over or you die, it's not my fault. I love you. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe. Busa boys, commence rage mode in the comment section. I will always be one of you. I know you don't accept me as a Busa boy. Maybe I'm a Busa manlet, whatever you want to call me. I don't really care because I owned one and I turboed it and I blew it up. I did more than you. Catch you later. Fact, Jessica Cox was born without arms. She defied odds by becoming the world's first licensed pilot to fly with her feet after earning her pilot's license in 2008. Goodbye. Well, look at you. You've made it to the end of another Yammy Noob video. You should consider yourself pretty lucky because I have curated this one right over here for you to continue watching. It's probably just as good as the one you just saw. Unless you hated the one you just saw. I don't know, maybe leave me a comment down below about how much you hated it as well too. Or just keep watching this one. Make sure you keep watching Yammy Noob. Don't forget to keep watching Yammy Noob. That's the most important thing. Keep watching Yammy Noob.